Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My
Hello.
name is Mike Larkin, one half of the Stephen Mike Show. www.stephenmikeshow.com is up and running, where you can hear such shows as you're about to hear today. This is another edition of On the Mic with Mike, and I am pleased to have on the legendary, the beautiful Miss Ginger Lynn. Ginger, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
I, I
First,
wish I was there with you. I love doing interviews, but I love the interactive, and I could, embarrass you a little bit and tease you a little bit, but it's going to be tough on the phone.
well, think about this. In the future, we will definitely make that happen, but at least I have your time, and I'm grateful for your time, so thank you.
You are so welcome.
Okay, now let's start into this. First and foremost, being a legend in the adult entertainment industry, how did you get into said industry?
Well, first of all, I don't know. I mean, they call me a legend, which to me means you're dead. Hey, wait a minute. I've got a lot of things going on.
Yes.
But it is an honor to be known as a legend within the industry, and I'm still number 7 in AVN's all-time top 50. So I've got some amazing women that I was up against, and so that's an honor. I never intentionally planned on getting into the adult industry. I moved from Illinois to California. I was managing a record store called Music Land at the time. I was a troubleshooter with 9 stores. And I just couldn't pull the bills together. So I started by answering an ad in the newspaper for a bachelorette show. And I just had to go and dance for the guys. Did not think it through. My boyfriend drove me. I had my little cassette deck. I walked in and I looked around the room and it was all men. And I just flipped. I'm thinking I'm going to get raped. And these were nice guys. It was just, I was 20 years old and never had done anything like that. So I didn't do so well in the private stripping sector since I left and they beat my boyfriend up. So then I moved on to wet t-shirt contests along the river, the river that meets the 4 points in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. So we would go to the river on the weekends, all my friends from the gym, and I would win all the wet t-shirt contests, so we had money for food and the boat for gas. So still wasn't quite making it, still wasn't making enough money to pay my bills and support myself, so I answered an ad for figure modeling in a local newspaper in I can't think of the Orange County Register. And it was for figure modeling. I walked in, and my agent was to be Jim South. He took photos of me. There was a photographer in the room at the time by the name of Stephen Hicks, who said, I'm going to shoot you for Penthouse in 2 weeks. I'm going to Mexico. I'll shoot you when I get back. A few minutes later, a woman by the name of Suze Randall walks into the office, and she said, I want to shoot you for Penthouse. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm already shooting for somebody else. She goes, he's not here. You're shooting for me, darling. And the next thing I know, I'm shooting my Penthouse layout. I shot nothing but pretty girl photo shoots back when there were magazines that were on the stands every day. I did that straight for 3 months, and I still my day runner. Out of 90 days, I worked 84 posing for men's magazines. And my agent kept saying to me, we'd love for you to get into the, commercial aspect of this. And I didn't know that commercial meant sex. Mm-hmm. When I did, I said no. That's, I had the same stereotype image of an adult film star or porn star as most people did back in the early 80s, which were just kind of, they were a certain kind of girl, that you would expect to do that. And I'm like the girl next door. So I do the naughty things, but I don't look like I did them. And so I met with one of the girls that was in my agent's office, and after meeting with her, I went back and said, I'll do it, but I want cast approval, script approval, and this much per sex scene. And Jim was on the floor rolling hysterically, crying tears, saying, you're nobody. No one's ever going to pay you that kind of money until you're a star. And I said, that's okay, then I won't do it. I'll just keep doing magazines. And about 2 weeks later, a couple came in, and they were doing their first adult feature films. They had a $250,000 budget. They wanted someone who had never been seen on film before. They wanted, all fresh, brand new girls. And that's what they got, including me. So my first 2 films were Surrender in Paradise and a little bit of Hanky Panky, which were both shot simultaneously on the island of Kauai. And I thought I would just do those two movies because I made I made more money in those 2 weeks than I did in a year at my other job, but I hadn't quit it. And I just thought, well, this is good. I don't need to do anymore. And the offers kept coming in, and I had such a blast on my first films. I met so many wonderful people. There was a little drama and some things that weren't so great, but 99% of it was just one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. I got to meet all these amazing people. There was a sexual energy that was in the air nonstop. People were having sex on the plane before we even got to the island. It was just all of these young, hot people that wanted to have sex with other young hot people. So it didn't even seem like work. It was like a party, if anything. All right, I'm going to do you today, and then I'm going to do you today. And I love sex. So it was just natural. And obviously, I did not say no after those two films. I worked for a total of 2 years and 3 months in my initial stint in the adult film industry.
I got to say this to you, and also being the time, I mean, we're talking about the 80s here. I mean, a lot of people identify that as the golden age of porn. So you came in at a great time. You got the sex, drugs, rock and roll scene that is the 1980s. So it all kind of came into fruition in its own right.
The 80s, I don't think that there has been or ever will be another point in time that the world was the way that it was at the time. Porn was the way it was at the time. I don't mean to be back in my day when I rode my dinosaur to the set. But, I was in it when I was treated like a princess. The people who were in it did it because they liked it. The guys didn't take little blue pills. There were no little blue pills. We were a group of 50 rebels who we were all within 10, 15 years of age of each other. Some of the guys, I was like, hey, all right, as long as you're not as old as my dad, I can do you. So the golden age was definitely my era. And not only was it the golden age just because everything went right, they were making big budget films. Out of the 69 films I made within that time period, over 40 of them were shot on 35 millimeter. And they rarely do things like that today. The market just doesn't apply with the internet. And I also came about at the same time that VCRs came about. So the people mostly up until that point in time, if you wanted to see an adult film, you went to an adult theater. That's really the only way. Some people had stacked films in their basements and things, but when VCRs came along, at that point, I had already done probably 10, 15 movies, and I made every box cover that I ever, not every one that in those 69 films, but most of the box covers. So it was almost as though you bought a VCR and you got a Ginger Lynn movie to go with it.
And I got to say this to you, I'll be honest with you. All right, so I'm 27 now, and I think the first film I saw of yours, I'll be honest with you, just, pure curiosity piques. You're a teenager, you're 13, you're 14
of
years
course.
old. So the first time I think I saw your thing, I don't remember if it was like all right, so there's a lot of pornographic sites out there. I don't remember if it was one of these ones that just like has everything known to man, or it might actually just been a particular like retro like porn site that had stuff from the 80s, 90s, what have you. But I remember, I think the first film I saw of yours was Kinky Business.
I loved Kinky Business. I'll tell you a little story about that one. First of all, I want to go backwards for a second and say, wow, and thank you for appreciating the quality of the work that was done back then, and I apologize for how hairy it was. They were very hairy times. But Kinky Business was the first movie that I saw myself on the big screen. And I went to the premiere. I got to walk. We had red carpets at that point in time. It was a big deal. And I sat on the edge of the row. I was really nervous. And I wasn't nervous about seeing myself have sex. I was petrified of seeing myself doing the dialogue because I don't want to do anything that I'm not good at. And if I'm not good at it, I want to work to become good at it. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, I'm going to be totally embarrassed by my dialogue. and that's how it's going to be. The movie starts, and the scene comes up where Tom Byron and I are in the shower. Do you remember the shower scene?
Yes, I do.
Yes, it's an amazing classic scene, and I look at it today, and I think it's. Can I swear on your show?
Yes, you can.
It's so fucking hot. The scene was amazing. But what I saw at 21, looking at it, was water smashing my face down to my head and my cheeks sunken in. So I saw a totally different Ginger Lynn than I had expected. I got up and ran out of the theater in tears.
I think, it is like you talk about like the appreciation for what you had with the, the porn films back in the day. I think I've had this conversation with Rebecca Bardot, and I look at people like herself, like you, like Nina Hartley, just those time periods and just the way that those shot. Obviously you look at a film like, oh yes, it's porn, they look at it how it is, but the way it was shot and the way that you do the scenes, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think you all lived up to what you did as far as your films go and just the overall quality of it.
We worked 16, 18-hour days. And I call it guerrilla filmmaking. You had a skeleton crew and, just the people that you needed to be there. Although, when I say skeleton, it means a totally, like today's skeleton crew is a dude with his camera, taking a video of you sucking his dick. Our skeleton crew meant we only had 20 crew members. So I'm comparing it to the mainstream projects that I've appeared in where you have you have a lot of people there. So I learned to make films in the good old-fashioned, do it now, these are the tricks, get it done. And we had, 120-page scripts. And so there wasn't a 10-page section missing where a sex scene would go. It was the 120-minute script with, on page 10, it would say sex scene number 1 and the actors that were to perform in it. So it's so different than today where if you're lucky if you have a script, but it's only going to be, all right, pizza delivery man, and you're the lady that doesn't have the money.
Yep, exactly.
We had to memorize our dialogue. We were making films. We were making legitimate films. I mean, Kinky Business had a great, it was obviously, taken after Risky Business, but with an adult twist to it. But I loved the time. I loved the golden era. I am so blessed to have been in it at that point in time.
And I'll add also to that, because you talk about Kinky Business being Risky Business. I mean, one of the top ones as well, Beverly Hills Cops.
Yes, and I did Beverly Hills Cops. That's right. Okay, have you seen it?
I have. I'll be honest with you. A lot of those times, like, here's the thing. What was great about, and I'll say this to you right now, growing up, like, mid-2000s, like I said, I'm just a teenager at this time, seeing
Right.
Beverly Hills Cops, so growing up with this, like I said, it piqued my interest just because it's, like, old school and just respecting, it's really kind of like all art forms, and I apologize for rambling, but it's like all art forms. You appreciate, old school music.
Absolutely.
So you appreciate it. So I just remember watching the film, I'm like, okay, this is different. This is from the 80s. This is different from what we have now, and you can actually tell the time going into it, like you were talking about, like just, oh, here's the pizza boy, you're the girl that has the money, let's go. So like I said, I enjoyed it. Good.
I'll expand on that. The scene that people always ask me, do you remember your films? Girls today go in and shoot scenes. I did films. I remember the movies, I remember the scripts, the actors, and especially certain scenes that stuck out in my mind. And there's a scene with Jerry Butler on a Porsche. Oh my God, I just realized I had a dream Jerry Butler was alive last night. He passed not too long ago, sadly. But anyway, so the scene on the Porsche was it was 4 a.m. Everyone was exhausted. The crew, they were like, all right, we got to feed the crew. If we can't stop production, can you guys keep shooting? And so here we are, 4 a.m. There's pizzas everywhere that if you're not in front of the camera, which is everybody except for me and Jerry. So they're eating their pizza. And you would think that we would have been going, I just want to be done and eat pizza. But there was such a wonderful energy and tension, sexual tension, and excitement of what was going to happen back then. So it turned out, even though it was, at the way past the midnight hour, and we were tired and hungry, and it's one of my favorite scenes I've ever shot. I had no trouble getting right to where I needed to be with who I was working with. And again, lucky girl.
And that's the thing, because I look at this time period like too, and also I just wanted to add this to this because I mean, in the '90s, I know you you had a relationship with Charlie Sheen. I mean, Charlie Sheen at the peak of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the major leagues, the whole nine. So
Right.
you got to be around the great Charlie Sheen. Can you tell us what that was like, just being with Charlie Sheen around that time period?
We met on the set of Young Guns 2. He was not in the film, but I had heard rumors. I hung out at the Playboy Mansion a lot, and you kind of, I was at the heartbeat of the 80s at that point in time. And so I was heard that Charlie wanted to meet me. And I've always pride myself. I've always pridden. I don't know. What's the word here?
Well, you had a pride. You took pride in yourself.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not a star fucker. I never have been, never will be. So I turned him down for, I was like, no, I'm not interested for the longest time until I met him. And we met on the set, and we had a wild romance that began about 4 days after he arrived and went on nonstop for almost 2 years, and then off and on again for a few more years. But he was one of the most, now I can only tell you about the Charlie that I know, and he is one of the funniest, most intelligent, articulate, interesting, fun-loving, generous, kind gentleman that I've ever met. Charlie was a blast. We partied together, we laughed together, we loved together, we traveled together. He wasn't embarrassed or ashamed. He, was out there, I love you. And that's, for him to say that at that point in his career with managers and agents and parents and everybody else going, she's going to ruin your career. We were in love, and he didn't let that bother him. It eventually did end our relationship, all of the outside people, but obviously I didn't ruin his reputation at all. He seemed to do just fine without me. He ruined my reputation.
Well, I gotta say this.
But in the big picture, I just have to say, for me, one of the best people that I've ever met. And I loved the time that we had together.
And I will say this is this time because, like I mentioned, Charlie Sheen, I know what everybody says, the winning and obviously what's going on with Charlie Sheen, but you cannot deny the fact, and I'll say this about yourself too, you both applied your craft and you honed your craft and you did the best at what you did for, years and years and years. So I got to actually give kudos to both of you for your respective fields.
Thank you. And I still respect Charlie. I avoid tabloids and the news, all those shows, but when things go down, people always call me and want my opinion, and I can't give a real one. I haven't seen Charlie in 24 years. I can only tell you about the Charlie that I knew then, and I had and still do have a lot of respect for that man.
And that's the thing too.
And I wish him all the best.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like when you don't know somebody, it could just be like since you haven't seen someone since high school. It's like, well, I know this might happen, but when I was in high school with him, he was great. Like how can you answer that 20 plus years later?
Yeah. Exactly the way that I just did.
Exactly. That's the thing that a lot of people, forget. It's like, hey, I remember him. This is the time period I knew him, and I don't know about him now, but it's like still, like, you see this stuff happen, you wish the best for him. You don't want to wish ill will on anybody, so it's kind of tough. But, like you said, I think you answered that beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, with you, I got to say this because, AVN Hall of Fame, XRCO, I mean, you're Starlet of the Year, Video Vixens, Female Performer of the Year, you, Tom Byron, Steve Powers, we could beer all day. But I got to ask you, Eric Edwards, to mention another one. But AVN, XRCO, Hall of Fame, your legacies, your overall accolades, how did that feel being in those Hall of Fames?
Well, the first one, the XRCO Awards, I didn't expect to win anything. I was shocked that I was nominated. I was still very fresh off the bus from Illinois. And I remember this so clearly. And you can get the first annual XRCO Awards on DVD somewhere. I know it's available and you can see what I'm talking about. But I was so still homegrown at that point in time. I wore a yellow dress with black polka dots from Sears. I looked like a bumblebee. I didn't put any makeup on. My makeup artist was there when I got there, and she's like, "You have to have something. How can you walk into an award show with no makeup on?" I'm like, I don't know. I've never been to one before. Nobody told me what to do. And so I was shocked that first night. I was giddy. I was embarrassed. I was excited. I was honored, and a lot in disbelief. The other person that was up for those same awards was Tracy Lords, and she had bigger titties and a much curvier girl, and much more confident than I was. She was more like the panther, and I was more like the puppy that ran in circles piddling. So very different people, and she came in sequins, and it was wonderful. And then as the years have gone by, and I've had my feet in cement and been, I'm on the Walk of Fame on Sunset Boulevard in front of the Hollywood Hustler store. Although I hear they're tearing it down, which breaks my heart. So all of the awards that I've given or been given, I said earlier that I never want to do anything that I don't put everything I have into it and do it the best that I possibly can. And that's what I did in the industry. So the fact that I was appreciated and people saw what I put into it and found pleasure and joy and appreciation, it's an honor to have won all of those awards. They're not something I leave sitting around the house. I've got a son. They've been in boxes for a while now. And then I think, okay, someday I'll put them out. But, at that point, I'm going to be, a little old and I don't want everybody to know. So I have to find a little secret stash where I display them in all my posters and movie posters.
Now, I'll add on to your comment there. First and foremost, you still look great. You still look absolutely fabulous, and I'll give that to you with the utmost sincere respect. You do. You look absolutely amazing. And
well, thank you, and I hope you have not looked at the photo some asshole put up on Wikipedia. I weigh 116 pounds. Mm-hmm. I look at that photo, and I look like I weigh about 1,600 pounds.
Oh,
it was just not, it was one of those, I picked that one. There's millions of photos of me out there. So thank you for saying that I look good. I look much better, I'm sure, than you've seen in a while. I've been on a very regimented yoga and just health kick. Just going, you know what? I'm in my mid-50s, and I want to be around for a long time, so I'm going to do what it takes to do that. Come on, baby.
Exactly. And I look at it like you mentioned yoga, and I think you have to. I mean, you just want to look good, keep your health going. I mean, that's the point. And I think you're doing that. You're adhering to that. So I got to give you again much kudos and respect on that.
Well, I've always done that. I started martial arts at 20 with Jerry Bell, and I practiced Shoto Shinkai for years. Moved on to MMA, Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm a third-degree black belt, but I've had 4 knee surgeries on my right leg and 2 on my left. I've got donors in my legs. So I'm so used to being a really physical person that it's impossible for me not to do something. And at this point, I blew my knee out 2 days ago.
Oh, geez.
You know when you're going down the stairs and you think that you're at the bottom? I was carrying some stuff. And so I did that long step and ended up on the bottom, but missed one in the middle. My leg went out the side, so I'm on crutches and a knee brace right now, waiting to see if I need X-rays, if it's going to be an MRI, if I tore my donor part or what. But so I've always been. The point is, I've always been very athletic. And if you need me to edit my answers a little bit, I know that I'm long-winded sometimes. And I don't want to make your job too difficult. So if you want to, tell me to shorten my answers, I can try that.
All right. I'm going to say this. You're saying everything right, and you're fine. So please, just keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. You're great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I could listen. Please, and actually, I'll be honest with you. Funny story, because this actually pertains to what we're doing. A lot of people have said that, and I'll be honest with you. You could call me King Rambler, because I'm very passionate about what I do, and I like to talk. So I could tell you're very passionate. You're also a very passionate person. You like to talk. So I am always happy to listen to my guests. So you're doing just fine.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, first of all, it's also about AC, accommodation and comfortability. So I hope I'm doing that for you on your end.
Oh, you're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, one thing I have to mention is we're gonna step back from the movies for a second. I want to talk about music because, man, Metallica turned the page. Amazing video. You got to be in a Metallica video. Great song, a cover. Bob Seger. Let's talk about that.
Right. Well, first of all, the funny thing is, I'm a huge music fan. I love everything. If you my playlist comes up, you'll go, how old are you? And you know, are you 16 or are you 90? Because I just listen to everything except heavy metal. I've just never been into the hard heavy metal. I listen to rap, but heavy metal was not my music. So Bob Seger, one of my favorite artists of all time, seen him in concert twice. I was, the offer came through for my agent to do the video, and I pictured myself being, a bimbo in a movie or in a video, and I didn't want to be the bimbo, and I really didn't have any interest. I wasn't a big Metallica fan, and so they kept coming at me for like 3 months, and I was on the road touring at the time. I was in Waco, Texas. This was before cell phones. And I was leaving just to go to the airport, and the front desk stopped and said that we have a call from your, my mainstream, agent. So I got on the phone. He said, "Look, Jonas Ackerlund is the director. He's in town. Can you please just, when you fly in, just go straight to the Chateau Marmont?" I said, "I'm wearing overalls, no makeup. My hair's in a ponytail. I have a bodyguard, a nanny, and a 2-year-old. As long as they can come with, I'll do it." And I showed up, met with Jonas, who is one of the most amazing directors of all time, in my opinion. I was honored and given the honor of presenting him with his Video Music Award. He chose me over all of the other. I mean, he shot Madonna and, Smack My Bitch Up, and you name it. Amy Winehouse, I think Amy Winehouse. He has directed, if you're anybody, Jonas has directed you. So anyway, I end up hearing, Jonas tells me his story and why this song is so special to him. And by the end of our 3-hour conversation, I want to do this video more than I've ever wanted to do anything in my life. So I go home, I accepted the offer. I'm super stoked. I can't wait to do it. And my agent calls and he says, "We have a problem." And I'm like, "No, I met with Jonas for 3 fucking hours last night. No, he said I had the role. What's wrong?" And he said, "Well, they expected you to look a lot worse. They wanted somebody that looked kind of worn out from the road and, rode hard, put away wet look." And I'm like, "I can do makeup." And so I ate nothing but ice cream and nachos for 2 weeks to put on weight. They put spirit gum or some sort of a thing underneath of my eyes. I had to fight for the role that I turned down for 3 months. I had to get fat and look old. And just so you know, all of the talking head segments, this is something that people think is me just being interviewed. That is entirely scripted. That's all Jonas. That's all I studied at the Beverly Hills Playhouse for 6 years. I'm not the best actress in the world, but I paid my dues and I work hard, and I'm really fortunate right now. I've got three films coming up within the next year. I start filming the next one in September in San Francisco. So I'm still doing it. But yes, the Metallica video is one of the things I am most proud of that I've ever done. Just went and saw them about 2 months ago. They played here in Vegas and still didn't like them. I tried. I brought a couple of my friends, and when they're explaining, I'm like, "What are they saying?" And because I kill and death, and people are doing this thing with their fingers, and I'm feeling like 90 years old, going, but everybody else is the same age as I am or older. There were quite a few younger people that showed up at the concert, but it was an amazing experience. Unfortunately, I've never met the band.
Wow.
They contact me when they're playing in town. I always go and see them. But I've never met any of them. Lars, I guess, was my biggest fan. Lars was the one that was really pushing for me to get the role. And I'm so glad I did it. I'm so proud of that work.
Well, I'll be honest, as a Metallica fan, I was happy to see that as well. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've always, like, you talk about going to concerts and, finally meeting the band. I mean, some of the best work, I'll be honest with you, being a wrestling fan, I know WWE has used their music. I remember I Disappear off the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. So, and of course, Enter Sandman. So, I mean, movies, wrestling, Metallica's always used. So, I mean, like I said, you can't escape it.
Oh, well, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate their music. I mean, Lars did this drum solo, and just everybody in the band, James, the guitarist, the bass player, everybody was so spot on. I was impressed beyond belief. And when Lars did his, normally you go drum solo, or I'm going to the bathroom now, I was mesmerized. I could not move. The energy and the precision and the talent. It may not be my kind of music. They're fucking brilliant.
And you know what it is too? Also, here's why I like it, because first and foremost, throwing up the devil's horns and just rocking out in Las Vegas. Like I said, I like that, and obviously a lot of the younger crowd there too. But you're just out there showing off and kicking some ass. What I appreciate about
I'm going, yeah. And I brought 2 other porn stars. I brought Jocelyn Stone and Rebecca Love, who are friends of mine. I'm like, come on, let's go. It's going to be a chick night out. And it was.
But what I appreciate is I'm very eclectic too, but I'll be honest with you, like heavy metal, like I like it, but I'm kind of like you, I was kind of like about it, but what's the other one? I think there's death metal, and I'm like, and there's all metals, there's like Viking metal, there's death metal, and I'm like, I can't go that hard into it.
Anything that's just really hard, and I don't understand the words, you have to really, pay attention, and then when I do understand them, it's about, mass murder.
Jesus.
Not my thing.
Well, I mean,
I'm a chipper, happy-go-lucky girl.
Exactly, and I'll be honest with you. Most of my mom's, like my mother was, grew up in the '60s, so most of that is like, a lot of, happy, chipper music, which is great. A lot of like hippie vibes, which is cool. And then you go into the '70s, '80s, '90s, etc. of the evolution of music.
Oh, I'm Zeppelin all the way.
Exactly.
I'm DC.
Yep.
I'm Queen. I loved the 80s music. Absolutely, the stuff that came out of the 80s, except for disco. I can actually honestly say I hate disco. Disco sucks.
And even hate the disco duck, I'm guessing too, right? The disco duck.
Well, yeah, it's cute, but
No, I agree. I hear you on that.
It's not in my personal collection or on any of my playlists.
I can hear you on that, man. I mean, I'll be honest with you. My parents are probably the most eclectic. My mom was into like, pop, R&B, and she likes a little rock, but my dad was more like the rock and like, the Hair Nation stations and Kiss and Poison. Sure. Yes. So that's mostly where I got both of my musics, my parents. And I'll be honest with you. Now I want to ask you about radio as well, because I know you did some radio shows as well. You had your own show, the Ginger Lynn Show. Like here's the thing about radio, and that's why I also want to do podcasting. My parents worked at a radio station on Long Island called 106.1 BLI, and they used to play a lot of music. They worked there in the 80s to like the mid 90s, right? So I always appreciated the art of radio, whether it be music or whatever discussion is being discussed on the radio. So I want to ask you, how is that like just doing like your own radio show and just being, on the radio?
It's one of my talents, I will say, and something that I love to do as much as my artwork or it's such a creative outlet for me. And combined with my very first radio show, and then Playboy and XM and Sirius XM, and then several of my own shows, it's one of my passions. And my new show, which we just moved to Las Vegas as I live here now, begins September 17th, which is a Saturday, and we will be having shows air Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's a combination of it's porn stars and sex workers meet up with comedians, and it's hysterical, it's sexy, it's funny, it's raunchy, it's educational. So I love radio, and I am so looking forward to being back on.
And that's what I'll be honest with you. I've listened to a lot of your radio stuff and I've enjoyed it just because you know what the thing is too? I think you give a great insight. You tell a lot about the adult industry and you get to pick your brain on certain topics. Because I'll be honest with you, listen to you, talking to you. You're a constant professional. You're very intelligent women. And I think you bring a lot to the table.
I appreciate that. And I want to give you and your parents a compliment. I didn't realize how young you were. I have a 23-year-old son, so you're not much older than my son, and you are a wonderful, wonderful interviewer, and you've done your homework and your research. And so I just want to give you a big kudos and thumbs up that you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, I thank you so much. I mean, you know what it is too. It's the respect factor. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get into the whole millennial conversation because the entitlement factor and all that. You know, the whole like you mentioned earlier, the back in my day type of stuff. Because technically we're getting
way back in my day.
Yes, because technically we're getting to that with like the kids that were born in the 2000s, and you got myself who was a 90s baby, and before the Facebooks and all the social media came into fruition. But it's just I appreciated that, and I always enjoyed. Like I'll be honest with you, some of my favorite stuff as a kid because I remember some of the stuff I always treasure, and I always like watching like the old Abbott and Costello films with like my grandparents because
I do too. There you go. My grandparents brought me up.
So you see, it's what you appreciate. That's the moments you cherish, and that's what you have to cherish because life's too short not to. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I see what's going on in the world. Like unfortunately, like we had those mass shootings, which again in Ohio, El Paso. God. I know, and I'm just like, it's got to stop, man.
It just makes me so sad and so sick to my stomach and helpless. I feel completely helpless.
And the thing is, like, can you even go anywhere now, Ginger? I mean, friggin' a Walmart, movies, like.
I know, right? Right? Yeah, it's. I carry I won't tell you what I carry, but I carry stuff to protect myself, and plus, I've got 30 years of martial arts, so. I know enough to hurt you enough to get away.
I was about to say, you don't need a weapon. Your hands are your weapons, and your feet. I see what you're all about there. I see your style.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I could appreciate that. I mean, I was just gonna say, you could just say you're packing. You don't have to give the name. You could just say you're packing. You got the heat. You're bringing the heat.
Well, no, I can't carry a gun. No, okay. I don't want to imply that at all. No, okay. I'm a convicted felon. I don't have guns. I'm not around guns. So, no, my weapons are my hands and my feet and a little zapper and maybe some pepper spray.
But I appreciate that.
And a very large flashlight in my car that's very heavy. Because you never know when it's going to be dark out.
I understand completely where you're going there, yes.
Need that light.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
All right. Now, I've got to move this along a little bit because I've got an appointment that I've got to go to in a little bit.
No problem.
I'm okay. But
okay. No worries. So, all right. I'll move this
You along. And I could talk forever. I mean, we could sit here for 8 hours and do this.
All right. Well,
I'm going to wrangle you back around.
No problem. All right. What I did want to ask about is because I remember this film in the mid-2000s. Two I want to mention to you, then I'll give you a couple more questions. The Devil's Rejects and National Lampoon's Van Wilder, The Rise of Taj. Now, I got to ask you, talk about being a part of those films.
The Devil's Rejects was one of my favorite experiences of any that I've had in mainstream Hollywood. Rob Zombie is an amazing director. He's the hardest working man in America. He works so hard. He is so talented, so good at what he does. And the fact that he's cast me in 3 of his films. I had to turn one down. But The Devil's Rejects was not only a wonderful film, and I had the opportunity to work with Sid Haig, but it became somewhat of a cult classic, even though it's not that old, but it's old enough to be, it's a cult classic. And I do a lot of celebrity conventions, the horror conventions. And so I've gotten to know Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley and it was obviously Sid Haig and William Forsythe William Forsythe and Leslie Easterbrook, and just all of us, for 10 years now plus we've been doing conventions together. So we've developed this amazing friendship that you don't get very often. Usually you do a film, you meet the people, you move on. In 31, which was the last Rob Zombie film that I appeared in, I worked with another actor that is on the top of my my list of talent, and that is Richard Brake. Did you see 31?
I did. Excellent film.
Doomhead is 31, or Richard plays Doomhead. And there are 30 plus minutes on the floor that they had to cut to get the film to be the right length. But originally, the way the script is written is I am Doomhead's girlfriend, and I'm just as fucked up as he is. And so we've got 30 minutes that no one will ever see, or hopefully someday it will come out. But I got to work with, a lot of it was ad-lib. Rob said, this is the gist, stick with the script as much as possible, but I want you guys to have fun, go for it. And we did. And it's one of the most fucked up, wonderful scenes ever, and such great character development. And then all you see me in is I'm just a body, but that's okay. I still got the opportunity. American Pie Band Camp was an interesting experience. I am glad that I was able to be in it. I love the film itself. I won't say anyone in particular, but there were a lot of personalities on that set, including ones that were in charge that were just fucking assholes. Okay. The producer was amazing. She was a woman. She, stuck with me on a lot of things, but it was one of those movies where it was work, and it wasn't pleasant work.
Now, I will say this, and just because I also just want to talk about your art for a second, but like we mentioned there, like I'm so happy you brought that up. The Bandcamp, Devil's Rejects, National Lampoon. So you've been, the Vice Academy sequences, the Young Guns.
Right.
You've done so much.
I've done more mainstream than I've done adult at this point in my life.
And that's the thing, and that's what I appreciate. You transcended and you transformed over to that, and I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you. Alexa doesn't know that yet. I was at a friend's house recently that had Alexa. I said, Alexa, who's Ginger Allen? Thinking that they know my mainstream work. Mm-hmm. And she came out and said, Ginger Lynn Allen is a pornographic actress.
Oh, boy.
No, Alexa, get your shit together.
And that's what I appreciate about you, because like I said, you could transition, you can transcend, and I think you got to it greatly. The roles that you played, like I said, even if mainstream, like you did with your adult films, you put everything that you did into it. I'll even say this, I did see the Dog Whisperer one that you did, and I did enjoy the Dog Whisperer episode.
Oh, thank you. That was my puppy Tank. That was one of the best dogs I've ever had, if not the best. I've owned Rottweilers for over 40 years, and Tank was a handful, but he was just the best dog ever. And so he just didn't like anybody but me. He did, but he had a temper. You didn't fuck with Tank, just put it that way. But now I have a 2-year-old, 140-pound puppy that puts his paws on my boyfriend's shoulders and looks him in the eye. My boyfriend is 6'2". His head, standing just normal, is up to my belly button. He is the size of a Great Dane, but big and full. And he's taking a nap right now. But you look at him and you just go, how can a dog be that big? It's inconceivable. So I'm a big dog lover, big dog fan, big animal lover.
Well, I gotta say, a great episode of The Dog Whisperer, and I gotta say this as well. Another thing I have to mention to you is because you mentioned your art before. First and foremost, is there anything that you can't do? Because god dang, man, you're killing it in the art form. you do some great work. You're having a great artistic expression, just of the human body, just the way it's very abstract. And how did that come into fruition, Ginger?
Thank you. I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm going to reinvent myself." I don't reinvent myself. I just do what I feel like doing next. And my art is my favorite thing. Art and acting, it's a toss-up. But my art I can do whenever I want. And my art is inspired by a memory, a song, a smell, a fight, a hug, somebody at Walmart. They're just, I'm inspired for every piece that I do. I'm actually working on a beautiful piece I'm doing right now, which is because you'd mentioned my nudes. It's a commission piece, and this man sent me probably 20 photos of his wife, who's just one of the cutest, prettiest, just so much fun to paint. And so now I'm to the point where I'm doing commission pieces, and I always let people know I am not a portrait artist by any means. I am a complete abstract. Every painting I do has my DNA. I do use my hands at some point on every painting. Another thing that is different about my work is I'm a very textile person, if that's the right word. There's a lot of, you can close your eyes and touch every piece of my art, and you can feel it. It's not just flat paint. There's sand in some of them. I hike up in the mountains and use the crystals that I find. I grind those up and put those in with my paints. I use glass beads. I use my colanders from my kitchen. I use, I went to Disneyland and bought, or not Disneyland, I went down to the Strip and bought one of those 3-foot drinks, non-alcoholic, I don't drink, and used the bottle for a design to roll on a piece of canvas. So I see everything as something artistic. And every painting, you'll notice on gingerlinart.com that there are no sizes, there are no prices, there are no stories. And the reason I do that, and I do it intentionally, is because I want to talk to you about each piece. I want you to know the story. I want you to, these are my babies. These are all a part of me. And I love when something that I do touches someone else. And I like to give people that personal response. I'm not, I don't have 20 people doing my jobs for me. I do my jobs. I'm the one that does my work. If it's something that Ginger Lynn did it. I've been diagnosed as hypomanic, which basically means that 99% of the time I am upbeat, I'm happy, I'm chipper, and I'm busy. I need to be busy all the time. And fortunately for me, my outlets are my art, my acting, one of the things I did for the girls in the industry, because not everybody I was lucky. My grandmother taught me how to knit, how to sew, how to make candles, how to design jewelry, which I also do. She did not teach me how to paint, but she gave me the inspiration to do all of those things. And I forgot my point there.
Oh, no, I could just tell you right now, I think you have to stay productive. Your grandmother and your grandparents were a big influence.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. What I did is not every girl has that to fall back on. They don't have someone who taught them all of these things. So I started a website about 10 years ago now. It's called gingerlinauctions.com. And it's a place that anybody can go, man, woman. You can go and purchase your favorite porn star's personal lingerie. And if you are a porn star or a sex worker, the site is free for you. It's free for everybody unless you buy something, but anybody can post anything they want to as long as it's not illegal on gingerlinauctions.com. And so it was a place, I designed it so that the women in the industry that woke up just as I did one day and went, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm going to do something else. But I had things, I fell back on my jewelry making. I designed jewelry and sold it out commission for 5 years until I went to my next thing. So I had immediate something to fall back on. So this is a place where the girls that have 30 bins of lingerie they've worn, in 3 movies, and then in their personal life, you can only wear things on camera so many times. So this is Ginger Lynn Auctions is a place for the girls to post and sell their personal items for free. And it's a place for their fans to find all their goodies. So when you just said that, I have more things going than anybody, I just had to add the auction site into it as well.
I'm glad you did, because all Ginger's links from her social media and to her auction to her art will be in the description below this audio. And I'm just going to say this because I do have a couple final things I just want to add. First and foremost, I will say this, Miss Ginger Lynn. Anytime you want to come back on the show, you're more than welcome to. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
You are one of my favorite people that's ever interviewed me. I would be more than happy.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
To come back on.
You were one of my favorite guests, so thank you.
Oh, it's the Mutual Admiration Club. I love that.
Exactly.
Just made my day.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to. I do my best to entertain. I do my best with what I do and everything. So thank you, Mrs. Ginger.
You're welcome. You deserve the praise. You're very good at it.
All right. Now, well, first and foremost, I got to say this to you because I think what we do with these platforms also just not to inspire, just to inspire, encourage, and just, if you had any advice, because like I mentioned, jack of all trades, adult star, mainstream, you jack of all trades, painting, whatever endeavor that may be, what advice would you give to said individual that wants to get into whatever endeavor?
Today is the only today that you get. Make the best of it. Don't put anything off. My gravestone will not. I don't want to be buried, but if I were to have a gravestone when I died, it would say, maybe I shouldn't have done that one twice. It will not say, I wish I had. Everything that I feel that I need or want to do, whether I know how to do it or not, I do it. If I don't know how to do it, I learn how to do it. So my advice to anyone and everyone, whether you're creative or not, but especially if you are creative, don't waste your today. It's the only one you get. Smile at the lady in the purple shirt at the grocery store with the flowers on it that looks ridiculous. Tell her she looks pretty. Make somebody else's day.
First and foremost, beautifully said. And number two, I'm going to add to that because the three key elements for me, and like I said, I was influenced by my parents, grandparents, two big integral females in my life, are my mother and my grandmother, God rest her soul. Beauty, strength, and dominance that exudes and accentuates the three key elements that make women the work of art that they are. And Miss Ginger Lynn, I adhere to that, and I imply you in that sentiment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are so well spoken. I'm so impressed with you.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm very appreciative and I'm very grateful. So I just got to say, and this is also where I step back because ladies first, it's not just a Queen Latifah song. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, your websites once more. Let everybody know where we can follow you, Ginger. The floor is yours.
You can go to gingerlynnart.com. You can go to gingerlynnauctions.com. You can go to gingerlynn.com. All of them will get you back to the other place that you can find me. If you want to speak to me directly or text with me, I'm also available on sextpanther.com. That's SEXT. You can call me, you can talk to me, you can text me, and it's a way that people that want to, it's a way for us to connect. It's brilliant. Twitter is at Blame It On Ginger. And what else have I got? Facebook is Ginger Lynn Allen. I have several Facebook accounts that people have put up that aren't really me. If it's a really old picture, it's not me. I put up current and what I look like today photos on my Facebook and my Twitter. So don't let those people out there fool you. But Ginger Lynn is such an easy name. As long as you type in Ginger Lynn, you're going to find me.
All right. Links will be in the description. Graham, Instagram, yay or nay on that, Ginger?
What? Say that again?
Sure. Instagram, yes or no on the Instagram. I think that's the only one I forgot. Yeah.
I have Instagram, and I did it for a while. But what I was finding is with all the social media out there, if I'm just doing my social media all the time, I don't get time to do me.
That's
and
true.
It's a big job. So I do as much of it as I can. I am on Instagram. I'm not on it every day. And I don't document everything I do because I'm doing it. Okay. If that makes any sense.
It does. I think you worded that well. It's true because I think you worded that great. I think the Instagram, it's the same as the Twitter, right? Blame it on Ginger.
Right. It is.
Okay.
It is. I try to use Blame It On Ginger for everything. But people, since I've come up with that, people have taken that one too. It's people. Do you know how shitty it is? People steal your name, your image, pretend to be you.
Yeah, then you see shows like Catfish, and it's like, what the hell is wrong with people? Because that's what they do. They steal your name, they steal your identity. And it's like, what the hell is this crap?
And why? I love being me, my own me. I don't want to be you. I'd like to have a dick for a day, but
Well, I think what's interesting about people. Wow, I can't top that. But anyway, I'll add to that. But I think it's just because people just, I don't know, they like to, they they don't like the way they look. Let me use this image because, like we've seen, like I mentioned, Catfish is a prime example of that. But yeah, it's crappy, or there's that, or it's just the other understanding of just people are just complete and utter assholes. That is the other.
Yeah, and I had somebody take my entire website, gingerlynn.com, copy it, the entire thing, and put it up with a different suffix.
Oh my God.
The same and luckily Suze Randall and I are good friends, and we own all of our photos together. Suze got on it, and that site went away very quickly. So the real me is gingerlynn.com, gingerlynnart.com, and gingerlynnauctions.com. And then my social media, Blame It on Ginger, is usually where you can find me.
All right. Links will be in the description. And one final thing, Ginger, if you have any other, I guess, if you have any final words to your fans, your supporters for all these years, what do you have to say to your fans?
Wow. Thank you. And I couldn't have done it without you. Every single film that I've made, every character that I've played it to the best of my ability to bring you, my fans, my followers, the people who are familiar with me, joy, a turn on, a laugh, a fright. I want to share everything with you.
Beautifully said once more, and I just got to say this, Ginger, it's really been a pleasure speaking with you today. So I'm going to say for Ginger Lynn, my name is Mike Larkin. This will conclude another edition of On the Mic with Mike. Ginger Lynn, it's been a pleasure, it's been a privilege, and I thank you again so much for your time.
And I thank you as well. I'm available to you anytime.
Awesome. So, guys, stay tuned. We'll be back in the next episode. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks. Bye-bye.